Okay, got it. Thank you so much. Okay. Good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, and thank you so much, Paul, for being here, and thank you for inviting me here. I think this is my third time here, and I really, truly love it. Thank you so much, Steph and Lloyd. Thanks. Um, some of you probably know that today's topic is called Trust. You are perfectly cared for. And some of you even know that that was one of the clearest messages that was ever given to me by the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit said, trust, you're perfectly cared for. I said, oh my God, that's true. I am perfectly cared for. So here is the good news. Even though the topic says trust, you're perfectly cared for, and some of us says, well, I'm not really there yet. Whether you're there yet or you're not, whether you're trusting or you find it difficult to trust that you're perfectly cared for and you're still into survival, the truth is you're perfectly cared for. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you totally trust and know that God totally loves you and you're perfectly cared for, and you accepted the atonement a long time ago, and you know that none of this is real. Or you find it hard to accept the atonement and you think that all of this is real, and how could you be perfectly cared for in a world that looks like this? Truth is, I'm still perfectly cared for. You know, in the section called trust, it literally says, as in Teacher's Manual, section 4, 10 characteristics of God's teachers. And he tells you that this is the only thing you really need to develop. Everything else is given to you naturally. You don't have to do anything for honesty, faithfulness, open-mindedness, generosity, tolerance. All that is part of developing trust. But he tells you that trust can take a very long, long time. And he uses the word long, long time. So, you know, I think for me, it could have taken the last 40 years, which is probably true. As long as you're into survival, you haven't totally trusted. And either trust is total or it's not trust. You know, I'm holding on with my fingertips just in case. I can't trust. I got to be able to do for myself. I got to defend myself. I posted something in the chat, and some of you may have come in late, but it comes from one of my all-time favorite sections of the textbook, chapter 21, section 7, the last unanswered question. And the very first line is one of my favorite lines. And some of you who know me for some time, like Kathy, knows that I say this all the time. He says, do you not see that all your misery, all your pain, all your suffering comes from your strange belief? And if you know Dove, I see the word belief has a big lie right in the center of belief. So it's a belief I got, but it's not the truth. It's a belief that the one that they call the Holy Son of God, is powerless. Is powerless. It means I'm helpless. I'm a victim. I'm a victim of this world. Of course, there's a couple of lessons to say, I am not a victim of this world. I made it all up. I dreamed it all up. Yeah, of course, we can ask later, why would anyone dream it all up? But what I want to bring to everyone's attention is, I'll put this in the chat now so everyone reads the same thing. Okay, this is paragraph 2 of the exact same section, chapter 21, section 7, the last unanswered question. He says, no one believes the Son of God is powerless. And those who see themselves as helpless, victims, being unfairly treated, must believe that they are not the Son of God. What can they be except an enemy, his enemy? And what can they do but envy him and his power that he never gave to poor me? I'm a victim, unfairly treated. And by their envy, they make themselves afraid of the power. They make themselves afraid because they see themselves as weak. These are the dark ones, silent and afraid, alone and not communicating, fearful that the power of the Son of God will strike them dead, and raising up their helplessness against him, they join the army of the powerless to wage the war of vengeance, bitterness, and spite on him, to make him one with them, because they do not know that they are one with him. They know not whom they hate. They are indeed a sorry army. Each one is likely to attack his brother or turn upon himself, as to remember that they thought they had a common cause. So it's a long paragraph that says, if I defend myself, I'm attacking myself. The secret of salvation is I'm doing this to myself, no matter what it is that I think is going on outside of me, that somebody is not liking me, somebody's hating me, somebody's making me wrong, somebody doesn't doesn't see me. They they want to see their judgment of me. As long as I see something outside of me, I'm at the effect of something that's outside of me. So one of the first things I say in this course is you got to listen to what he's saying. In a way, the Course in Miracles is written like the 20 questions. I don't know if you remember the idea of the 20 questions. Is it bigger than a bread box? Okay. Is it smaller than? So you keep going and going until you finally find out what it is. He does the same thing in the course. He gives you little hints here and there, but those aren't little hints. They are major ideas. And one of the major ideas that is so valuable is that you find it in chapter 18, section 6, called Beyond the Body. And the very first sentence in Beyond the Body is, there's nothing outside of me. This is what you must ultimately learn. Now, when I first read that, it was about 40 years ago. I said, okay, there's nothing outside of me. I must ultimately learn this. Okay, one of these days I'll learn it. That was 40 years ago. A few years ago, my partner John Mundy said to me, "Do you know what the word ultimately means?" I said, "No." He says, "It means now." Can I learn that there's nothing outside of me now? And now, it's not in time that I'm going to learn this. There's nothing outside of me now. So nothing outside of me can hurt me. Another corollary of that is there's only one of us here. There's only one of us here. It's not two, one. As Ken Wapnick used to love to say, Jesus wasn't good at math. He couldn't count past one. Okay. So if there's nothing outside of me, then nothing outside of me can actually hurt me. Nothing outside of me can hurt me. And what am I defending against? That's the longest lesson in the course, lesson 135. If I defend myself, I'm attacking myself. So you say, well, I don't want to attack myself, but after all, I am a body. I could be hurt. People die every day. I don't want to die. Well, that's the other thing that he says to us over and over and over, and we don't seem to get it. It's one of the 20 questions. Like, is it bigger than a bread box? I am not a body. He tells us that 23 times. I am not a body. Well, that sounds interesting. Okay. Well, one day I'll figure out what I am. No, there's not one day I'll figure out what I am. No. This is a good time to recognize that I am spirit, which we just did that lesson a little while ago, lesson 97. I'm spirit. 95 was I am this one self united with my creator. One self united with my creator. Yeah. 93 was another goodie some of you love. You who think you're the home of sin, darkness, and evil, when you're really the home of peace, love, and joy. So you can see how in this world, we either think of ourselves as the home of sin, darkness, and evil, or we see somebody else as a home of sin, darkness, and evil. It's the same thing. I'm always speaking about myself. That's the one thing that people who have heard me before know that Dove always says, I'm always speaking about myself. No exceptions to that. It doesn't matter who I'm speaking about. I could be speaking about Putin. I could be speaking about O.J. Simpson. It doesn't matter who I'm speaking about. I'm speaking about myself. You got to laugh. So what am I going to say about these people? That they're home of sin, darkness, and evil? No.
No.
I'm going to take a slight pause and ask, because we went pretty deep already. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions about anything that I said at all? Anyone at all? And if not, we'll
What-
just continue. It's fine. It's always good to ask questions because your question is on everybody's mind. Truly, you're always helping everybody with whatever it is that you have any doubt with. So the second of the principles of those 20 questions that allow you to recognize, he's always giving you hints, but you have to accept them. You know, you have to accept what is given to you. Now, one of the lines in the course, and I don't know how many people are familiar with this line, it's in chapter 22, section 2, paragraph 7. It says, this course is to be believed entirely or not at all. The word entirely means entirely. When it says I'm not a body, you say, well, you know, I'm not up to that yet, but you know, I'll believe some other stuff. No. As long as you leave anything out, you're really resisting what Jesus is saying. So he says, listen, either accept everything that I'm giving you, or you are defending against it. You're resisting against it. And resistance is the source of all pain. Acceptance is, for me, another word for forgiveness, especially in that famous lesson 135. If I defend myself, I'm attacking myself. Lesson 135, the longest lesson in the course, the one that Ken Wapnick calls the Atonement Lesson. And in paragraph 11, he says, a healed mind does not plan. It receives wisdom greater than its own. And the next 6 paragraphs are all about do not plan. The ego is always planning because it lives in time. Time is just like an app that you download on your computer. And as long as you download it on your computer, you have to live by the rules of that app. When you have no more use for that app, you just simply, just like you do on your cell phone, you delete. I don't have no need of time and space anymore. I live in eternity. That's where all the value is. So what's valuable belongs to me. I will not value what's valueless. What's valuable belongs to me. So why do I think I need something from this world? There's nothing in this world of time and space that has any value to me. If something begins in time and ends in time, which is really another word for form. Form begins in time and it's born, it lives for a temporary time and then it dies. It has no value to the eternal. What value does the temporary have to the eternal? Why would I want it? I mean, he actually tells you in, I forgot which section it is, but he said, oh yeah, it's in your appointed friend. He says, if you strive for anything in this world, if you strive to get anything in this world, it will hurt you. Not that it can hurt who you truly are, but it will delay you in time. You'll think that there's something that you're missing. You'll think that there's something that it will help you to get what you want. But lesson 132 says, what's valuable already belongs to me. I won't value the valueless. And he gives you two criteria that's very valuable to know what has value or no value. If something begins in time and ends in time, it has no value to you, the eternal. None. And of course, bodies they're born, they live, they die, they're born, they live. You have the power of God to create any illusion you want. The body is an illusion. The body is an illusion. He tells you in the Course, in no one instant does the body exist at all. You might say, well, that's ridiculous. Well, in time, the body does exist. But he also tells you that time is the vast illusion. Remember, time is like an app that you download into your computer. And you download this into your computer because I want to be able to talk to people. I want to be able to learn. I want to be able to get. I want to be able to do. I need a body to do all this in a virtual reality. And that's what we live in. Some of you love the movie The Matrix. And this is basically The Matrix. You know, you're living in a place where there's you and there's me, there's us and there's them, there's good and there's bad, there's right and there's wrong. It's a world of polarities. We're totally polarized. That's where the conflict comes from. You know, if you live in conflict, there's always more problems to solve. There's always somebody else who doesn't like you. There's always someone else who's attacking you. There's always someone I have to defend against. And as long as I keep looking outside of me, that is going to be true. But there's nothing outside of me. Again, I'll ask, are there any thoughts or questions on anything that we just said?
Fran has a question, Dove.
Go ahead. Hi, Fran. Thank you.
Go ahead and unmute yourself. Yeah.
Hi, Dove. Thank you very much. I'm really appreciating this. The word resistance, illusory body, etc. I just spent this last week with 4 of my younger grandchildren. I had them, and my illusory body feels like it's been hit by an illusionary Mack truck. But it was wonderful. And initially, before they arrived, I was kind of going, oh God, how am I going to get in my coursework? How am I going to have that peace and quiet I need? And I got this, I'm starting to hear the voice of Holy Spirit. Sometimes it's humorous, sometimes it's, you know, what's your problem kind of attitude. And basically it was, you can hear me. You can hear me anytime you want, whether your grandchildren are here or not. It is all a play. And so it was a fascinating exercise between loving these little holograms, the older ones and the younger ones, full of ego. She's got more cake. It was just, and there were one time I did do the old Cheech and Chong record, shut up, everybody. But it was, I realized, and I feel tearful because that's Holy Spirit always telling me I'm hitting on something authentic. It's poignant. That I can do the course anytime. I can practice anytime. And boy, it was quite a week of being sucked in. And the ego is the one telling me, oh, you're not going to have, you know, you have to have peace and quiet. You have to have the exact time of day for the course. And I'm realizing the voice of the ego. And there have been some real intense voice of the ego trying to, you know, convince me. And one of the most powerful things, I love the postings on our group because it really, if nothing else, I can pick up something like that because the theme is the same. It is the same no matter what the words are with this course. I'm not a body. I'm free. I'm the Son of God. And that is very, very hard to, handle from the time space thing. But I just wanted to kind of anchor some of the things that I realized or remembered this week, with all of us little egos screeching and carrying on and then delighting in each other. I'm totally and utterly exhausted. I miss them. They just left this morning. But I can never lose the love of God. That is my inheritance. I am the love of God. Or that kept me going, because I had a couple encounters with my older grandchildren, which are much less easily dismissed from my ego's point of view. I'm just really grateful for the course and this group, and I really still struggle so much with beating myself up for buying into the ego. And then I remember this is so entrenched, for seeming millennia. I've been doing this. So just chill and keep going and keep going. That's my best shot today. I really appreciate being here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, friend. And you said a couple of words that I want to bring up that I think are very powerful. The word gratitude is another word that takes the place of grievances. So grievances are the thing that darken my mind so that I don't know that I am the light. The light has come. But how could there be light when I have grievances? And all grievances come from the past. So you got to begin to recognize that time is not your friend. As a matter of fact, time doesn't even exist. You can only really live right now in this eternal now. And the word eternal now means it's now, and there are endless nows. That's what eternity is. Eternity is not a long time. It's having this experience of gratitude, thankfulness now. I am so thankful. I am grateful. Love is the way I walk in gratitude. Ask 1,000 times a day, who walks with me? And somebody once said to me, did you ever count how long that takes to say 1,000 times, who walks with me? And they computed it out. They did the logic thing. And it computes out to 16 hours a day. He says, you realize you'd be spending 16 hours a day asking the same question, who walks with me? And it came to me, as Spirit kind of put it in my mind. He says, if you have to ask more than once, you're not ready to ask the question. When you say, who walks with me, it's to know that I and the Father are one. My Father is always with me. He tells you this in lessons. It's at 29 and 30. God goes with me wherever I go because God is in my mind. I mean, he tells you that. In fact, some people have used that as a reason for not accepting lesson number 1, which is nothing I see here means anything. Nothing I see here means anything. God's in my mind. Yeah. It's just the way you're willing. Willingness is, in this course, is really everything. Willingness is everything. So your willingness to see things differently, above all else, I'm determined to see things differently. That's lesson 28. And I'm one of those people that believe that the first 50 lessons is the whole course. In fact, I got it down to, I think the first 2 lessons is the whole course. Nothing I see here means anything, and that's the truth. And then, just in case you think anything means something, that's the ego says, yeah, it definitely means something to me. Well, you need some more practice. That's all. You just need some more practice. I think it's helpful to come to a place where you can accept the course itself. That's what happened for me. I remember when I first came across this book called A Course in Miracles. I was told about it by a next door neighbor to Jerry Jampolsky back in 1977. Jerry had had done the course, had saved his life, and then he saved a lot of lives of a lot of other people, especially a lot of children who had disease that they thought was terminal, and that was the subject of NBC's Christmas time show, Jerry and His Kids. That was way back in, like, in 1980, 81. But I met Jerry's next door neighbor who also had a terrible thing happen to him, same as Jerry. And Jerry gave him a copy of the original book, which was a Xerox form. And he went through it. And after he went through it, he said, I really want to meet this woman, Helen Schuckman. Now, this guy was one of the co-founders of EST. And some of you may remember EST.
Yes.
And and I always say, if I didn't do EST, I could never, ever have ever picked up A Course in Miracles and done it, because EST was my way of recognizing who my ego was. And I realized the day I recognized that the voice in my head is not my best friend. From that point on, it made things easy. If I didn't do that first, I did it in 75. When I came to 77 and I heard about the Course in Miracles, and I went to Wise's bookstore, the only bookstore in New York that carried it, the Course in Miracles, I would have opened up the book and took one look and says, what? This is not for me. Put it down. Never would have heard of Course in Miracles again. But I realized that the voice that speaks to me is not my friend. Why am I listening to it? But when I first picked up the course, okay, I still read it like a book. Most of us have read many books, and I read it like a book until I got to lesson 189. Thankfully, someone told me, don't bother with the text. Just start with the lessons and do lesson 1 and go as far as you can. So I was about over a year into the course, into doing the lessons, when I came across lesson 189, and some of you know that lesson. Lesson 189 is one of the most famous lessons because paragraph 7 is repeated by just so many people. I'm going to post it in the room so everybody can read it, because this is what it says.
Simply do this.
Simply do this. Be still. And if you just stop there, that'd be all you need to do. Because when you quiet your mind and you still your mind, the Holy Spirit is always speaking to you. As lesson 49 says, God's voice speaks to me all through the day. There's a part of your mind that is in constant communication with God. Constant means it's always there. But my mind is so full of other voices that are talking to me about things that make no sense, but I'm trying to make sense out of them. I'm trying to fix problems. I mean, who has time to listen to this still, quiet voice? Simply do this. Be still and lay aside all thoughts of what you are and what God is. All concepts that you have learned about the world. All images you hold about yourself. Empty your mind of everything it thinks it is either true or false, good or bad, of every thought it judges worthy, and all the ideas of which it is ashamed. Hold on to nothing. Now, so far, that wasn't anything that spoke to me loudly, but the following couple of sentences spoke to me so loud, I said, wait a minute, this is not just another book. This is what it said. Do not bring with you one thought the past has ever taught you, nor one belief you ever learned before from anything. Forget this world. Forget this course. I say, what? I'm doing this course for a year, and this author is telling me to forget this course after he gives me 1,300 pages to read? Forget it? Well, my understanding of what the ego is, I realized that this book, this Course in Miracles, was not written by an ego thought system. And I don't know of any other book, maybe some of you do know, but at that point in my life, and that was back in 78, 79, I did not ever come across a book that was not written by an ego. And I'm talking about all books. I'm not talking about, I mean, these days you might give me the names of a dozen books that was not written by an ego, and that's fine. But this is the first one that I came across. And from that point on, I literally accepted everything that was said without questioning what was said. I didn't have to question anymore. I accepted. And you all know that famous paragraph 18. I was talking about the 6 paragraphs that lead up to paragraph 18. A healed mind does not plan. It receives wisdom not of its own. And finally, in paragraph 18, he says, what can you not accept? If you but knew that everything that seems to happen, the word seems very important, seems to happen, all events, past, present, and even to come in time, are gently planned for you by one whose only purpose is your good. That kind of brings us back to the topic for today. Trust that you are perfectly cared for. Everything is happening for you. The ego sees the exact opposite. What do you mean it's happening for me? I'm unfairly treated. I'm a victim here. People are taking advantage of me. They use me. They abuse me. That's how the ego sees everything. As long as you listen to that ego, you gotta say, hey, wait a minute, I gotta push people away. I gotta keep some distance between me and people who say that they love me. That's like pushing love away. It's like pushing God away. That's pretty much, lesson 189, what we just read from is, I feel the love of God within me now. I feel the love of God within me now. But if you're pushing the love away, how could you feel it? How could you feel it? You're pushing it away. Are there any thoughts about anything I just said?
Yep, correct.
I just want to share something right now. This is what sits on my dresser. I don't know if you guys can see that.
It says, simply do this.
Oh, yeah.
Be still and lay aside all thoughts of what you are and what God is. All concepts you have learned about the world, all images you hold about yourself, etc., etc. It's the exact passage that you just read.
I just thought that was interesting. That sits on my night table. It's the first thing I see when I go to bed and when I get up.
Yes. Someone gave me that exact same picture that you have framed too. I have it in my living room. Exact same.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. That is what allowed me to recognize that this is not just another book. This comes from beyond this world. What can I not accept? I was looking for this all my life. And it came to me just about by the time I was 40 years old. And in the Jewish tradition, you're not invited. You're invited into the Kabbalah, which is the mystical side of Judaism, only when you're 40. That's the first time that you're invited. Until then, they don't want to hear from you. But when you're finally invited, they invite you in, and you're the first one to speak. It's like the elders say, what is it that you bring to us? You're the last player onto this field of mysticism. What do you have to bring? Because they don't want you to be tainted by what the elders say. So they want to hear what you have to say. So no one in my area was inviting me to the Kabbalah. So I invited myself. The Course in Miracles to me is like invited into mysticism. I mean, we all know that Jesus, even though he was considered a Jew, he was not a religious Jew. He was a mystic. He was in a scene. He knew the difference between form and content. The so-called religious rabbis were all into form. So look at that. He doesn't obey the laws of Moses. What kind of a rabbi is that? But he knew that those were man-written laws that had nothing to do with the law of God, so he went about his father's business. Any other thoughts at this moment? I love to ask that question because it allows the Holy Spirit to give me another thought.
Yeah. When people start asking questions or making comments, it's like it gets the wheels turning, right?
Yeah.
That's
I
the
mean,
perspective.
if there's any thoughts about if you have any doubts about anything about the Course in Miracles, if you totally accept the Course, and actually there's nothing I can really say, because it is about total acceptance. Either this Course is to be believed entirely or not at all. And most of us like to believe in the things that, make us feel good, like I am sustained by the love of God. Lesson. Oh, I love that lesson. I'm sustained by the love of God.
Right.
Yeah. But who is the I that is sustained? Is it this body that's sustained by the love? Of course not. Are there any thoughts?
Lisa has a question.
Yes, Lisa.
Sorry, I really believe that there's only one of us here. I believe there's not a world, but sometimes I get caught up in the dualistic way the Course is sometimes written. For instance, the ark of peace is entered 2 by 2, yet the beginning of another world goes with them. So who are the two that goes 2 by 2?
Yeah. Okay. Excellent question, and thank you so much for that, Lisa. Because in this Course, as you realize that you can't just go home alone. You have to see your brother as yourself. And it means all brothers as yourself. And if you're going to pick out any one brother, don't pick out the one that makes you feel warm and fuzzy and say, oh, he's definitely my brother or sister. Pick the one that you're having somewhat an uneasy feeling about, one that you really, feel, what do you mean my brother? This person is not my friend. That's the one that's going to bring you home. That's the one. Because even though the Course is all about peace, and he tells you the key to the kingdom, or the key to going home, is peace. He tells you very clearly in the Course, but peace has one condition. Does anyone know what that condition is?
Forgiveness.
Very good. Excellent. Forgiveness. Anyone else?
Non-judgment.
Peace is the condition.
All right. Well, okay. Lack of judgment is good. The word that he uses is equality. Equality, which is another word for sameness. Make this year different by making it all the same. Who am I having a problem with? Who is my brother who's causing me some discomfort? Who is he? Is he different from me? I and the Father are one. I and my brother are one. Love your brother as you love yourself. Love God with all your might. Those are the 2 commandments that Jesus took from the 10 commandments from Moses, and said, no, you don't need 10. You only need 2. And finally, you only need 1.
Right.
I and the Father are one. Yeah. But you have to bring your brother along. Because if you, in chapter 25, which is, it's called the justice of God, all 9 sections in chapter 25 is about justice. And I could tell you, if you haven't read chapter 25, you ought to take another look at it. It's a chapter that talks about equality, that what God creates, he gives to all the same. So if I think that I'm the Son of God, you can be sure that everyone that I meet is also the Son of God. As it says in the clarification of terms, who is Jesus but a man who saw the face of Christ, the face of innocence on all that he met, and he remembered God. So he says, if you want to be like me, see all your brothers and sisters the same. Well, one of the paragraphs in the Course, which I love, is called the rewards of God. It's in chapter 4, section 6. And if somebody can go there and put it on the board, but it goes something like this. As you come closer to a brother, you come closer to me. As you distance yourself from a brother, you're distancing yourself from me. So if you're pushing somebody away, you're pushing Jesus away. When you're pushing Jesus away, you're pushing love away. Who is Jesus? A man? No, Jesus is the love of God, as I am the love of God. And then the next line says, and that's because salvation, and remember, only salvation can be said to cure. Salvation is a collaborative venture. We're all in this together. So when I started out this afternoon, I says, remember, there's only one of us here. It may look like there's more than one, but there's really only one here. It looks like there's more than one, but that's part of the illusion of many. And isn't that like e pluribus unum? From many, there's one, e pluribus unum. It's on every coin, every certificate of monetary thing that came from our, well, if you're in the United States, I should say, it comes from the founders of this country. E pluribus unum, from many, one. So your willingness to see your brother as yourself is the only way home. You can't go home alone. You have to see that brother, especially the one that seems to be causing you some discomfort, to see him as yourself. That's the way home. And how could you possibly do that? Well, our function is forgiveness. Remember, at the very beginning of this course, it says, your function in this world is not to discover what love is or know what God is. Your function is to remove the blockages to your awareness of love's presence. The love is always here between you and your brother, but you've covered it over with grievances, thoughts from the past, something that was said that the ego said, well, that's an insult. I'm injured. I'm hurt. That's how the ego sees things. I'm different. You're different. And if you're different, you will be hurt, because we made a world of differences. But differences do not exist in reality. In reality, we are one. We are one. What is heaven? If you know what the course says, what heaven is? Heaven is an awareness of perfect oneness. And heaven is our home. When he says the only responsibility you have in this world is to accept the atonement for yourself. And I want you to know, I'm one of the people that spent years and years and years saying, hey, Jesus, you keep telling me to accept what is the atonement? You say, you accept the atonement, What is the atonement? And the atonement literally says that you're perfect. Include your brother as perfect. This inclusion, instead of exclusion, invites atonement automatically. You don't have to figure out what atonement is. Simply include your brother as yourself. Not any brother, the one that's giving you a little problem. As Ken Wapnick used to say, don't hang out with people that make you feel warm and fuzzy. That's not where your lessons are. Your real lessons are where you don't feel all that comfortable hanging out with this person because there's something about them that bothers you, something that irritates you, that disturbs you. Now, for those people who know me, I do a consulting service that basically says, be grateful for the things that trigger you, because they reveal your mistaken beliefs. And that's what this course is about, to recognize that we have mistaken beliefs. As you were saying, Steph, we're saying, what is perception? But a mistaken perception. I'm looking into a mirror and I'm looking at my own mistaken thoughts and I project it out onto somebody else. So what is going on with somebody else that I don't like? It's what I don't like about myself. But I avoid that by pushing it out onto somebody else. Well, why do you ask me to be with somebody that I don't like? I'm always speaking about myself. We said that about 20 minutes. No matter what it is that you're talking about. I don't care if you're talking about Putin or O.J. Simpson. I'm always speaking about if you think he's a criminal, guess what? You think that you're guilty for something. Yeah, a criminal is just someone that's guilty. And if you're doing this course, the whole course is about that who you are is sinless, guiltless. You're the Holy Son of God. You're innocent. You're whole. You're what God created. God's not guilty, and neither are you. Any thoughts on any of this?
Absolutely beautiful, Dove. I just want to share what was coming to me when you talked about, we can't leave our brothers out. We have to include our brothers, and we're all going home together. Was the reference in A Course in Miracles where it talks about the circle of atonement, and I stand in the middle of the circle, inviting you into the circle. And if you stand in the circle and you leave your brother outside the circle, you stand outside the circle with him. So in other words, if we exclude our brother, we're excluding ourselves from the circle.
And of course, another thing is that, don't forget, it's all symbolic. When we say we can't go home without our brother, it doesn't mean our brother's body.
Right.
That's a very important factor, because we have to actually look past the body. Because the body's doing insane things. But behind it all is a mind that just split temporarily. It just needs to be healed. And the only way we can heal it is to see the innocence behind it all. Nothing has ever really happened.
Yes. What does it say about, the teacher of God or whatever, student, I should say, really, is about seeing the oneness behind all of it. Right?
From my own experience, it just, I learned years and years ago that there was actually only one split mind here, one ego. There wasn't many egos. There was only one appearing as many. And, that changed my whole life right there when I discovered that. But there's also only one spirit behind that. It's like there's sort of a mirror effect here. When the ego made this world, it actually used some of the, the heaven of heavens abilities. In other words, there was only really one split mind here, whereas in heaven there's only one mind of God.
Right.
And that's what we have to see in everyone, is the mind of God. Look past the split, because it never really happened, is what the Course is teaching us. That's what the Atonement says. It's the acceptance of the fact that the separation never occurred.
Right. This world was over long ago.
And,
Okay.
I just want to say one more thing, Deb,
Yeah,
about how we don't see things in the Course for a long time. We see certain things at first that we like, we bypass other things. And recently, I was quite actually amazed, because I've been doing the Course for 27 years. There was a line on page 631 that I had never seen before, up till about maybe 2 months ago. And it says, God knows not form, on page 631. And I blew me away, because I thought, boy, I've read this Course a few times, never saw that. So as our mind gets healed, it's true, we do see things we weren't ready to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a powerful thought, because this entire Course is about content, not form.
Yes.
Right.
So the ego mind only wants to deal in form, like, well, that's what you said, I say different, you see differences, that's form. Content is pure. It's either pure love, which all are created equal, the same, or it's fear. And you have that wonderful line, love and fear cannot coexist, but perfect love casts out all fear. So what we're looking to do is to let go of the things of this world that are fearful thoughts. The mind of the ego, it has nothing but fear-based thoughts. If I let that person get too close to me, I'm going to be hurt. So that's a fear-based thought. And you say, well, I got to take care of myself. I mean, you know, if I don't take care of me, who's going to take care of me? I mean, basically, basically the topic for today is trust. You are perfectly cared for. And we said at the very outset, even if you don't trust, you're still perfectly cared for. You're perfectly cared for. If you have any thoughts about that, and that's a biggie that we just said, you know, question it, voice it, and I'm sure that everyone will be helped by it. I'm going to put up, about back in around 2004, I happened to be listening to Ken Wapnick doing a thing on the introduction to the clarification of terms, and it was like a half-hour talk on one page, page 77 of the teacher's manual. I'm listening to him, and I heard this voice speak to me, and it's like whether it's the voice of Jesus, which I kind of think was the voice of Jesus. It was very clear and very loud. It wasn't a still, quiet voice, and it said, "Hey, Dove, close the book already. You can't find yourself in a book. A book is symbols, words, concepts, and even Jesus tells you in the last chapter, he says salvation, which only salvation can be said to cure, can be said to be an escape from all concepts. So when we try to learn concepts, that's the ego trying to learn. The ego is trying to learn what's good, what's bad, what's right. And the ego does a very good job, by the way. Ego does a good job. The ego wants to learn. You're the son of God. The son of God does not have to learn to be the son of God. So at that moment in time, it said, close the book already. You know, that's when I started to develop trust. And trust is to know that the Holy Spirit is always speaking to me and through me. That I don't need, the book is very helpful. I'm not saying I don't look at the book a couple of times a day. I'm not saying that. But to know that the Holy Spirit is always speaking to you and through you. That's why I started ACIM Gather at the same time in 2004, where everyone is invited to come and teach. A lot of people say to me, well, suppose I don't know what to teach. I said, well, you can teach anything you want. You can open the book to a lesson, teach a lesson. You can take a paragraph or two from the textbook. You look at the teacher's manual, you do anything you want. You say, well, suppose I get to the microphone, I don't know what to say. So we always say, go to page 28 in italics. This is what Jesus gave to Bill Tedford when he was afraid to speak to his colleagues in Princeton. He said to Helen, give Bill this to say. I'm here only to be truly helpful. I'm glad to represent him who sent me. I do not have to know what to say or what to do, for he who sent me will give me what to say and what to do. Yes, the Holy Spirit is always speaking to me and through me if I'm willing to step back and let him lead the way. And that's lesson 155. Notice lesson 155 follows 154 very closely. 154 is, I am among the ministers of God. I am among the ministers of God. And 155 tells you exactly how to be a minister of God. Let me step back and let him lead the way. I don't know the way. So I'm stepping back and asking the Holy Spirit to speak to me and through me. So that's a practice that I heartily encourage. And even though we learn so much from coming to these sessions, until I'm willing to say, I am among the teachers of God. And remember, the teachers of God have 10 characteristics. And the only one that you're responsible for, the only one, is trust. And what are you doing? You're trusting that even if I don't know what to say or what to do, he who sent me will give me what to say and what to do. But like I said, at the same time, I had done 27 years of reading the course, and I kind of was able to see that there's a pattern in what Jesus says. He says the same thing over and over, almost on every lesson, every paragraph, every page. He's saying the same thing. You just have to see the awareness of his spacious thinking. And if you brought it down to, I was able to bring it down to 12, what I call 12 core themes of A Course in Miracles. And if you want, I send them to anyone. All you have to do is send me a email, and that's my email address, acimgather7@gmail.com, and just put in the subject line 12, and I'll send you the entire 12. If you print it out, it takes about six pages. And I even added something today, by the way. So it isn't, I keep adding things to it, but there's still about 6 pages when you print it out. So I'm glad to do that.
That's wonderful, Dov. Thank you. And I'll include your email address when I post the YouTube video to our group later today as well.
Very good. Thank you for that. Yeah. So I always am reminded in the Song of Prayer. The Song of Prayer has 3 parts. The first part is on prayer. The second part is on forgiveness. What is forgiveness? And the third part is on healing. It starts on page 17. And one of my favorite lines in that is where Jesus says, "Do you really think that you can come and sit in front of some teacher, some guru who knows everything about everything, and one day you're going to become equal? You really think that?" And in the next sentence, he has a 2-word sentence. That's impossible. You can't go from being unequal to being equal. You're either always the son of God, you're either always equal, or you're not. You can't learn how to become equal.
Right.
Are there any thoughts on that?
Again, we're not talking about bodies.
Right.
Spirit is spirit is spirit.
Right.
Spirit.
Yeah, all spirits are created equal.
Well, you're back to what you believe. If you believe you're unequal, it doesn't make it true, but you're operating out of that system. And there's the difference.
Well,
What do you believe?
Yeah, if you believe that somebody has something that you do not have. I didn't finish. Thank you for bringing it up, because I mentioned there are 2 criteria in lesson 133. I will not value what's valueless. Is there something wrong with the picture? I'm not sure. Okay.
No, it's good.
Okay. I will not value what's valueless. What's valuable belongs to me. That's lesson 133. And he gives you 2 criteria to determine what has no value to you whatsoever. I went over one of them. If something begins in time and ends in time, it has no value to you because it's temporary. What good is a temporary value to you, the eternal? And the second criteria, thank you for bringing it up, Fran, very important. Second criteria is if you think that you have something that another doesn't have, or you think another has something that you don't have, whatever it is, it has no value to you whatsoever. That's the ego thinking that certain things are valuable. But what's valuable belongs to all equally. Very, very important. So,
Dov, I just wanted to mention, when you're going through the 6 stages of the development of trust, you get to stage number 5, and, like a lot of us, we hit a brick wall because we think we know what is valuable and what is valueless. We think we know that. But what I've discovered is that a body in the world, or a person, a personality, cannot and is incapable of separating what is valuable from what is valueless. And so therefore we need help. It's like when you get to stage 5, you begin, some of us begin to go through, a very intense purification process, like a storm erupts, in other words. And if you use the analogy of the storm, so a hurricane comes through and all this natural pruning occurs. So all the dead leaves fall from the trees, and all the leaves are blown around and they get swept away and flushed away by the nearby brooks, etc., and so forth. And so that's when you really learn to separate the valuable from the valueless. When you have to trust, even when the Holy Spirit does not feel available to you, that's when you truly learn how to trust. Because most people, when we think of trust, we don't really know the meaning of the word trust. We have to go through this process, through the 6 stages of the development of trust. So I wanted to mention that was the latest revelation that came to me, was that we're not capable. We think we are. We think we know what we want and what we don't want. And to a certain degree, we're right. You know, we are correct. But there's something else that we have to go through after that. There's a very specific transition that we must go through after that, which requires that we trust, that we really learn how to trust.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. I think as long as you brought it up, I'd like to even go to the course and see what it says. You know, when he says this step alone can take a very long time, he's really talking about step number 5, because step number 5 is saying, you're right. You can't discern between what's real and what's not real. We don't have that ability yet. That's why everything needs to be turned over to the Holy Spirit to ask, what is this for? As he
Right.
says, ask of all things of this world, what is this for? Because you do not know. This is not your home.
Right.
If you think you know it, that's the ego knowing it. Only the ego already knows what everything is for. Why is that? Because the ego has given meaning to everything. That's why lesson 1 said, nothing I see here means anything. If you think it means something, go on to lesson 2. The ego gave meaning to everything. Yeah.
And it also says that, you know, when we come to when we come to the 5th stage, that we think we know what forgiveness is, and we have done a lot of forgiveness, and you know, we need and to recognize that and to be grateful for how far we have come, because many of us go through a lot in our lives, right? You know, we go through a lot of trials, a lot of dark nights of the soul, and so we have done a lot, or we wouldn't have gotten to stage number 5. But it is then that we really have to hold on for dear life, you know, because it's the transition that we're going to go through then is really going to break our dependency on the world.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because trust is the first word of today's topic. Trust, you're perfectly cared for. The good news was, even if you don't trust, you're still perfectly cared for.
Right.
But let's look at what the most valuable thing that you can develop. There's one thing the Course in Miracles does not teach. That's why it can take a very long time. It doesn't teach trust. It talks about trust. It says it's the only thing that you're responsible for. All the other characteristics are given to you once you develop trust. But trust must come from us. It must be that I'm willing to let go of my belief system. And my belief system is the lies that I've believed in my entire life. Simply do this, be still. Let go of everything you ever thought was true or real or good or right. Nothing you're ever ashamed of. Forget this world, forget this course. The course is more concepts, more words. You can't bring a book of concepts home. There's no place in heaven for a book of concepts. That's why trust is what this course is really about.
Right.
And I'm gonna read what paragraph 5 says. Thank you for bringing it up. The next stage is indeed a period of unsettling. Now must the teacher of God understand that he did not really know what was valuable and what was valueless. All that he really learned so far was that he did not want the valueless and that he did want the valuable. Yet his own sorting out was meaningless in teaching him the difference. The idea of sacrifice, which is so central to his own thought system, and sacrifice, I asked Ken Wapnick, you know, what's your very brief way of looking at sacrifice? Choosing one or the other. So when you're at the fork of the road, when the road branches and you go either one way or the other, who is in charge? The ego. Well, I think that this is the way to go. Choosing one over the other. That's sacrifice. And sacrifice, as he tells you in lesson 187, paragraph 6, remains the one idea behind all of the world's pain and suffering and hurt and misery. You find that. And I love that paragraph because he starts off with laughter and he ends up with laughter. And in the middle of that paragraph is the most horrific thing you ever want to read. He says, those who understand what true giving means must laugh at all the forms of pain and sorrow in this world. He says, you laugh equally at lack, at loss, at poverty, at starvation, and even death. You might say, did Jesus write this? He says, because they all come from the same place. They come from the belief in sacrifice, choosing one over the other, the haves instead of the have-nots.
Right.
The idea of inequality. And then at the very end of the paragraph, he says, and in your gentle laughter, it is healed. So he starts with laughter, he ends with laughter, and in the middle, it sounds horrific. But okay, let's get back to this section right here again. It says the idea of sacrifice is so central to the thought system of the student, it made it impossible for him to judge. It made it impossible to judge what's good and what's bad. He thought he learned willingness, but now he sees that he did not know what the willingness is for. Now he must attain a state that may remain impossible to reach for a long, long time. The two longs are from
Yeah.
Jesus, a long, long time. So he's telling you, trust is not easy.
No.
You have to let go of everything. You have to let go of everything you ever believed to be true. Simply be still, let go. Don't listen to one thought your mind is telling you. Yeah.
And I like what, like you just alluded to, the idea of sacrifices is the reason that we can't do the separating ourselves is because our investment and our belief in sacrifice is so strong. And what really, again, came to me was that's the belief in loss. It's the losing of your identity, losing your individuality. The belief in this, we just don't want to go there. We don't want to lose ourselves. And we believe that we're going to have to lose ourselves. That's the fear.
Stephanie, I'm glad that you brought that up. It made me remember something that Ken Wapnick did. I keep referring to Ken. He was my teacher. And I know a lot of people consider the same thing. There's other people who think that he wasn't their teacher. That's fine. But in his last workshop, which they made into a small book, it's also into a CD, it's called Taking the Ego Lightly, Taking the Ego Lightly. And it basically, it says, what a joke to think that time could come to circumvent eternity. Now that's a line right out of the Course of Miracles. It's a joke. Jesus calls it a joke to think that time could come to circumvent eternity. Who you are is eternal, and what we are learning is everything that happens in time. So as you begin to, as the end of that course says, in your gentle laughter, you're healed. And what are you laughing at? You're laughing at anybody in this world. You're not even laughing at yourself. You're laughing at what you believe to be true that's not true. You're in your gentle, I do that all the time. I mean, people say, well, when something like that happens, what do you do? So I'm not saying that my mind is still. I'm not saying that. I am saying that when I have these insane, crazy thoughts about this shouldn't have happened, it could have happened, it shouldn't have happened, I watch the thoughts and I don't pay them any mind. It's almost like that Zen teacher. Can't think of his name. But anyway, he says, when thoughts enter, it's like a glass of champagne. The bubbles start at the bottom, they flow up, and they effervesce and they disappear. He says thoughts come through the front door, they pass through your mind, let them go out the back door, but do not serve them tea. Do not entertain the thoughts. If you entertain the thought, you're listening to the ego.
Right.
Well, maybe I should do that. Yeah, I mean, it sounds reasonable, doesn't it? No, it's a thought from the ego thought system.
It's about the thoughts we think.
Yeah, the thoughts we think. Exactly.
And we got a couple more questions here. Are we okay with that, though?
Very good. I love questions.
Okay, now I was going to say, do we want to take a little 5-minute break before we begin to ask some more questions? How does everybody feel? Okay, is that okay, Sandy? All right, because we usually take, we've been speaking now,
Perfect.
if you can believe it, now we've,
Yeah.
time flies when you're having fun, although there is no time. But like it's 20 after 1. Let's take a 5 to 7 minute shake a leg break, I like to call it. Get a coffee, have a water, whatever, and then we'll reconvene here in 5 to 7 minutes.
I just want to say that this morning I did a little post on our site and it shows a hearse hauling a U-Haul trailer. And my caption was, you see, you can take it with you.
However, see you shortly. Okay, guys, we're ready to resume.
Okay, I know, Dr. Sandy, you have a question. Go ahead, please. And there was a question on the board, which I'll get to. Go ahead, Dr. Sandy.
Um, yes, I'm just amazed by your clarity here. But I do have to share that I've been going through the eye of the needle, and Stephanie and Lloyd know this. They've been very kind to help me and provide me with their resources. But they have actually a web page that is all on resources for and about going through the eye of the needle. And I didn't really, I mean, I just wanted to know how to get out. Like that line that you said, that you read, I was, saying it aloud about you reach a place that it may be impossible to get out of or get through for a long, long time. And of course, that's been in my head. And, it's been, I literally, last night, I literally felt so almost broken, like I needed to go to a mental hospital or something. I just felt like, I'm losing everything. And I knew that it was probably because I'm going, that I'm going through this, and that I'm afraid of losing my development of self, or the sense of self that I believe I've developed. That's the ego. And so I understand, like technically, but it's the application that is been difficult. But when you said something, this whole meeting has been, when you said trust, I realized trust is the key. That's the only thing that we have to develop. I see it. Trust would settle every problem now. That's right. That's the key out of the eye of the needle.
Okay.
And I guess that's all I wanted to say, is that, whenever I'm beginning to falter like I was yesterday, and I did make a decision to move away from a trading group that I was a part of, which was difficult because I didn't want to move away judgmentally, but I knew that my own decisions within to make these trades, because I do trading for a living, sort of. I just mainly lose money, but I think that is going to change now. I was guided, and I heard the Holy Spirit through several people tell me to move away, but I had to do it very kindly. And I don't know what that has to do with anything, except that I just have to trust. And thank you.
Okay, I think it has to do with everything. One of the memes that I came up with myself, I usually use other people's memes, but I have two of my own. One is you got to laugh, and the other is we live in a sea of synchronicity within an ocean of love. And that's my experience, that everything happens perfectly. Believe it or not, I was going to come back from the break. I was going to say, by the way, if anyone has anything going on right now in their life, they're feeling some discomfort, some things that are triggering you, that bother you, that's something to bring up, because those things are very real for you. What I'm talking about is concepts. And concepts are nice. I learned a new concept, but that's the ego. The ego learns new concepts. But what you're doing is you're going through an experience that's not so happy. You're not going through a happy experience. By the way, so your question brought on exactly what it is I was about to say. And you're right. Trust would settle every problem. Now it comes from the Course in Miracles, not from me. This is in the back of my card. But trust would settle every problem. Now comes from chapter 26, section 8, paragraph 2. Trust would settle every problem now. And when he says in lesson 79 and 80, let me recognize what my problems are so they can be solved. And then in lesson 80 says, you have no problems. I mean, how could it be that you have no problems? Well, he reaffirms that by saying, if you totally trusted, you'd have no problems. So totally trusting is letting go of everything that you think is true. There's nothing that you believe in this world that's true. If he tells you there is no world, and you find that in paragraph 6 of lesson 132, I loose the world from all that I thought it was. There is no world. Can you accept that there is no world? I'm asking you, can you accept that? I want you to know. If you say yes quickly, I'm going to say I don't believe you can accept that because that happens to be my birthday lesson. My birthday lesson is May 12th. It's coming up soon, and it's lesson 132. I loose the world from all that I thought it was. And if you do that lesson, and I'm a person that believes that everyone's born on the day of the lesson that they were born to teach, and I have a card that you can find that out, but we won't go in that direction this moment. But my lesson, I'm reading my birthday lesson, lesson 132, and it says, there is no world. This is the central thing this course teaches. Not everyone can accept it. Some have to leave and come back again until they finally accept that there is no world. So I didn't accept it when I first heard it. That was years and years and years ago. But it helps me now. I'm not saying that I don't look out on the world like from where I look now. I was showing Stephanie and Lloyd. I'm looking at the New York City skyline from my window. I mean, obviously, there seems to be a world. There's boats on the Hudson River. There's a bridge where cars are going from New York to New Jersey. Yeah, things are going on in this world. But the world is a classroom. You see, that's how I see the world. The world is a classroom where we come to learn lessons in this classroom. And you don't leave a lesson until it's learned. So it's not what the world is. The world presents us with lessons. The world presents us with lessons. And I was going to say, if you have anything that triggers you or bothers you, this would be a good time to bring it up. And I say on my card, I say, be grateful for your triggers, for they reveal our mistaken beliefs. The reason things bother you, the reason things disturb you or take away your peace, the peace of God, is that you think that these things are real. But guess what? They be grateful for those things because they allow you to look deeper and see the belief that attracts you to that particular feeling in which you feel not so happy that this is happening to you. So if you want, Dr. Sandy, you can go a little bit further and tell us why you chose not to be in this particular group. Maybe something there disturbs you, and take a look at it as something you can learn from and heal your mind. Because if you just leave the group, and I like what you said, you don't want to leave under a judgment. Very good, very important. But even leaving is really a judgment. That doesn't mean that you might say, I don't want this in my life anymore. Believe it or not, I used to be a day trader. So I'm coming from, in fact, more than half my life I spent in Wall Street. So I certainly know what trading is about. And I don't really trade anymore. I'll give you the way I see trading. Anything that you do in the idea of quantity, which is numbers, quantity is of the ego. So you're really here to learn of equality, which is sameness. Certainly trading has nothing to do with sameness. It's I win, you lose, or if I lose, somebody else is winning. It's a win-lose game. Right. And in a win-lose game, there are no winners. It's impossible if someone loses that another can gain. Impossible. You find that in the Course in Miracles. So if you want to tell me a little about why you're moving away from the group, that might be helpful to all. That is what I do in counseling.
Okay. The guy that has the trading group, I met him probably about not quite 20 years ago. My profession before I stepped down from it was nursing, and then I went on and went in nursing education, got my master's, and then recently got my doctorate, which I've never used, in transformative studies. I still don't know what I'm supposed to be when I grow up, but in the meantime, a series of financial things have gotten where I can't really work. I have to do things, and I'm trading within the concept of, I mean, within the IRAs, so that they can be protected. So I decided when I kind of hit rough times that I've got a little bit of money, I'll go, and I mean, a very little bit of money, I'll get with my friend that tried to get me into trading, 20 years ago. So I got with him, and we tried to develop like a partnership where I did all the research for his group, and posted it every day. But my mind got muddled where I couldn't make a decision. My trading went, I lost lots of money, and I just couldn't trade. I mean, I just felt confused. And then my wife was telling me that, she saw my self-esteem, which I know is not real. And I know that's part of the ego. And I believe that it's also part of going through the eye of the needle. It just happens to be that I believe that the fact that I can't seem to make a good trade is, related to my self-esteem, but it's really not. So because my emotions were so bad, I had lunch with my friend and my wife, and she happened to know, not the friend that's in the group, another friend who knows this guy. And she said, Sandy, you need to get out of the group. And that's what my wife, she's very careful not to tell me what to do, but she's been kind of leaning that way. So I was hearing the same thing. So I even said, well, I feel like it's the Holy Spirit talking here, because I didn't want to cut anyone out. You know what I mean? Because I think like Kate, I listened to a lot of Kate Greaves, and, one of the things she said is like, don't isolate people, don't cut them out, don't cut them off. So I was very, I just have been thinking for a long, long time about getting out of this group, but not wanting to cut any one of God's, part of me off. And so, but I did, I went ahead and made the decision, but I just said very kindly that, thank you for all you've done, but I need to step back and reassess. And
Okay.
so that's it.
Okay. Thank you for that story. And I just want to say that what happened perfectly. You got to understand, if you think that your mind got muddled and you weren't a good trade and all that, if you look at it that way, that's the ego looking at you. Okay. The ego always puts you down, like my mind got muddled, I was not a good trade. No, what happened perfectly. All things happened for you, not against you. You might say, well, what do you mean losing money was for me? Okay, the money, which is paper strips, quantity, things, form of this world, is not what you came here for. Can I ask you a question? What is it that you came here for?
I came here what do you mean? Like,
Okay, what's the purpose of A Course in Miracles?
oh, a person is to undo the beliefs that I have, so
Okay,
that I can find, it's not a learning anything at all. It's just removing the blocks to the awareness of God, of love's presence.
very good. Okay, thinking that you can make money, make more green paper strips, is keeping you from what you're really here for, which is to heal your mind, to remember your true self, to literally live in the atonement or forgiveness of thinking that you can do something or be something in this world. If there's no world, what can you be?
Exactly.
A successful trader, so that I know where my next dollar comes from. I'm so good at this. I can just close my eyes, and no matter what I do, there's no lesson being learned there. There's no lesson being learned there. That's how to survive. That's survival. Only the ego wants to survive. You're not here for survival. You're here to heal your mind. So the fact that you lost money and you say, this is not for me, that was perfect. That's perfect. If you see things as happening for you, you're smiling and say, yeah. I mean, we all have some kind of addiction. We're all addicted to something. I mean, if your fantasy is the body, and I'm addicted to food, I'm addicted to sex, I'm addicted to this, whatever it is, it's keeping you from remembering the truth of what you are. I'm not this body. I mean, Jesus tells you there are no pleasures in this world because all pleasures are at the opposite side of the coin of pain. If I want pleasure, I want to make my body real. If I make my body real, what else makes my body real? Pain. Pain makes my body real. If I have painful thoughts, I think it's me that's doing, somebody's doing it to me. You know, maybe the guy who runs this group, he said the wrong thing. He said the wrong thing at the wrong time. I listened to him and he's to blame for all the money I lost. That's seeing something outside of you, you know, or in the old days, they had a ticker tape. Remember the old days, they had a ticker tape and,
Yeah.
and you saw something on the ticker tape and you were attracted to it, you know, and you were attracted to the wrong things. And why did I go there? You know, why did I go there? Everything is to learn that there's nothing here for you. There's nothing here for you. So what happened perfectly. People say, well, what do you mean happened perfectly? She lost money. You're not here to make money. You're
Oh.
here to remember the equality, the oneness, the sameness. That's your true self. To be aware of our perfect oneness. Is that helpful to you?
Oh, very. And I will have to say that a couple of the whole year has been rocky like this. And in terms of finances, because my wife is retired. The only money that we have, which we have no money, it comes to us. And I remember I wrote to Kate and Kate wrote back and said, don't focus on where the things are going to come from. It's going to come, things will come that you wouldn't believe. And that's the truth. I mean, we got this card in the mail that was like for food. That was a $400 that we had groceries for a while. Then we got, I found we were cleaning out a shed because we're going to move into our motorhome in about a year and a half. And we were getting rid of our shed and the stuff in our shed. And I found this currency, these strips of paper, like you said, that I had bought 10 years ago. And for just a silly thing that I did. Well, it turns out they were worth, $3,000. So money came to pay our rent and we sold our kayaks and we paid our insurance bill. I mean, I cannot believe the stuff that's happened because there's no way we should be here. We should be living on the street.
Oh, this
Okay.
is such a beautiful, I just want to say, this is such an amazing exchange here. Healing. This is a group. I feel like this is a group healing.
And I just want to say, you talk about survival. If I go back 30 years ago, if anybody was into survival, it was me. I had bunkers I had built in the mountains of British Columbia under 4 feet of earth, filled with 10 years worth of food and water. That was my journey until I saw the light. And I literally did see the light. It's another story, but we can get buried pretty deep in survival. And what is it we're trying to, protect?
Right.
It's an illusory body.
Right.
Yeah, a body that's not even here.
Right. Thank you so much.
Sandy,
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dove, for honest to God, I could, the Holy Spirit is over me.
Okay. All right. I just put up a question that came up during the break from Jill G. And she says, can you please speak to this? That, the topic is you're perfectly cared for. He says, that doesn't necessarily mean you'll have one rosy day after the other, no pain, no hard times, etc. Because those are the times that we feel not cared for. Okay. That's an excellent question. And thank you for the question, Joe. Now, you're perfectly cared for. First of all, if you're doing the course, you realize you have 2 different identities. The ego, which is not who you are, it's what I think I am. It's, I am this body. I was born in time. I'm one of the smarter egos on the block. I know more than most people, and that will get me by. And if anyone shows up that I don't like, I'll know how to deal with them because I'm smarter than them. That's our ego identity. Spirit, which is what God created, creates all the same. My brother is myself. Now, when we say you're perfectly cared for, I'm saying that who you truly are, spirit, is always perfectly cared for, always perfectly cared for. And your body, well, I think of a couple of lines from the Course. I think lesson 163 says there is no death. Now, that's a lesson all by itself. And if you think that you can be hurt, if you think that you can somehow be hurt, you're not thinking of what God creates. No one is a line, the Course, one of my favorite lines. No one ever asked, would a benign father, a benign creator, want to see his children die? No one ever asked that. I mean, we accept death is real. Well, of course, death is real. I buried my mother, my father, my sister, my brother. Of course, death is real. No. And then the other line of the Course, he tells you this, I think is in lesson 152, the power of decision is my own. He says, no one dies without their consent. No one dies without their consent. So even the body that is not you, you don't leave that body to die until you're ready, until you've learned the lesson that you came here for. You've learned the lesson that you came here for. Now, does it mean that I'm perfectly cared for, that every day is rosy? Absolutely not. I have many days where not only not rosy, they're not pink, they're, they are bumps and grinds, and they're not easy days. You think you're being attacked. But those are the lessons I came here to learn. Be grateful for those bumps and grinds, because exactly as Dr. Sandy was sharing, there's a lesson there for her to learn. It's time to let what has no value to her whatsoever, to let go of that and choose to only choose to see what has value, and what has value already belongs to her. But if she measures her life by the things that come and go, and obviously day trading or trading of any kind, win one day, I lose the next day, and at the end of the month they send me a P&L statement and I lost. I said, oh my God, I lost all that money. And by the way, Dove lost a lot of money. So anyway, the point is, you're not here for the quantities, you're here for the equality. Equality is of spirit, quantity is of the ego. Ego is only interested in how much. Who got more than me, and I want to have what they got. I want what they got. I'm one of the have-nots, and the haves are the ones who are dealing to me, and I'm afraid that they're trying to deal me out. But I'm smarter than them. I'll get what is mine. That's how the ego operates. You either identify with the ego or you identify with spirit. You cannot identify with both. Lesson 130 says it's impossible to be in two different worlds. You can't be in the world of equality and the world of equantity. They're two different worlds. I hope that's helpful, Jill. If you have any other thoughts or questions, I'd love to hear them.
Can I just say a quick something
No,
as well to Sandy? Remember I referenced earlier talking about the 5th stage of the development of trust and how we're not capable of separating the valuable from the valueless. Well, it's this stage that you're going through that will separate the valuable from the valueless of its own volition. It's like you're just riding the wave, right? You're going to get through this. And like once we get through it, you're going to be filled with a sense of wonder and peace that this world could never give you. And I say that because I speak from experience.
and I like to say one thing when we're on that subject of death. Everybody that's here today, when we're finished, go to the manual for teachers. And I think it's number 27, 28, something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And read what is death,
Right.
because I'm telling you, it's mind blowing. It's wonderful,
Yeah.
and it helps set you free.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. And it really gave me such I read it actually
It's
10
so
times in a
uplifting,
row.
yeah.
Yeah. It said, you know, is it not madness to think that we are born to age and lose vitality and die? Is it not madness to believe that? And no one ever stops to wonder if a benevolent creator would do that, you know, would create.
But there's a lot
A
in
world,
it that,
yeah.
that's just like, it just perks you up.
So, you know, the goal of this course is peace. And what's the easiest way to peace? Is to be here now. Be here now. It's only in the eternal now that you can find the peace of God. So even in those days where I said there's bumps and grinds, there's bumps and grinds because I'm listening to my ego thought system that says, oh, you better do this. If you don't do this, you're going to lose a lot of money. If you don't do this, it's going to happen. So you listen to the thoughts of fear, and fear keeps you in time. The only way out of time, I mean, Eckhart Tolle, who first did A Course in Miracles and then wrote The Power of Now, you know, it's all about being present now. Into his presence would I enter now. It's only in the eternal now that I can heal my mind of all those bumps and grinds, of all those deadly thoughts. If I don't do this, you know, if I don't do this, is a poison pill. That's a poison pill. If, as a great mystic once said, if there's an if in the center of the way you spell life, L-I-F-E, if there's an if in the way you spell life, you're listening to the ego. If this is going to happen, then I better do this because I want to prevent this from happening. It's always an if. It's maybe if. But then the same mystic said, but if God is the center of your life, which in the Hebrew is l'chaim, which means God, l'chaim, to live in God. If God is the center, there's no ifs, ands, or buts in l'chaim. There's no ifs in God.
Beautiful.
There's the certainty, I am the certain Son of God. And in that very famous abundance prayer, which you find in chapter 20, in the chapter 20, section 4, paragraph 8, I can actually put it up here because it's one of my favorite sayings. It's in the 12 core themes of A Course in Miracles, which if you want to get, but he says, if you fulfill the one function that you came here for, he will go before you, and no stones will trip you up, no obstacles will bar you away, nothing that you need will be denied you, not one seeming difficulty, but will melt away before you reach it. You need not take thought for anything. You can be even careless of everything except the only purpose that you would fulfill. As that was given to you, so will its fulfillment be. God's guarantee will hold against all obstacles, for it rests on certainty, not contingency. Contingency means maybe this, maybe that. No, there's no maybes, there's no dependencies, there's no nothing. It rests on certainty. And I always like to say at this point, the ego says, oh boy, I got a guarantee from God. And then it says, it rests on you. And what can be more certain than a son of God? And some people call this the abundance prayer. You find this in chapter 20, section 4, paragraph 8, and I'll put it up in the chat. So if you've never seen this before, it's a wonderful idea of abundance. Abundance is knowing that you're perfectly cared for. This is exactly what that paragraph is saying. I need take thought for nothing, careless of everything. If I fulfill the one function that was given to me, does anyone know what that function is?
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness, yes, forgiveness.
That is our only function.
That's right. My forgiveness and my happiness are the same.
Now, Dove, I'm going to interrupt for just one moment. It's exactly 2:00. So what we're going to do, we're going to stop the recording now because we don't want the YouTube video to be, any longer than 2 hours, but we're going to continue on, okay? So we're going to stop the recording, but before I do, I'd like to invite everyone here to unmute themselves to thank Dove so that all the love that you have just expressed can come back to you. We just want to thank Dove for this amazing healing session today.
But we're going to continue.
We're going to continue. We're not going anywhere. So just take yourselves off mute for the purpose of.
I got a little story I want to tell you after.
Thanks, Dove.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dove.
Amazed, amazed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dove.
Awesome, awesome.
Love this.
Thank you, Dove.
So beautiful.
Thank you, Dove.